I'm gonna dance like I got that beast within when I get that call to the rave. Fresh and buds now.
Fresh and
All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And today, I'm very happy to welcome Kevin Smurph Murphy here with us this week. How you doing, Kevin? What is going on?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, stuff's good, man. Like, I don't know.
We got to, we got to take. Now, here's a question. Actually, I probably should have asked you before we started recording. Are you headed to London soon, or?
I am.
Oh man, that's exciting.
Yeah.
We won't talk about your deck choice, although I could probably guess what it's going to be. But
Yeah.
we do have a great show for you all. We're going to get to know Kevin a little bit more, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Prism and Illusionist. Then we got a whole slew of listener questions. I think people are pretty stoked to have you on. So, without further ado, let's get into it with you, Kevin. I want to know about your humble beginnings as a card gamer. You are quite the proficient card gamer, coming off of a win we'll talk about in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it all begin, my friend?
I mean, I guess I did like the kid stuff where you have Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon cards, and you don't know any of the rules whatsoever. But so you make up kind of your own, and you're playing on the playground in elementary school and stuff like that. I played Duel Masters like a couple years after that, and I actually had like learned the rules with some of my friends and had like it was like I bought like a 2,000 card collection of essentially bulk off of eBay, and we built decks from that and played that. And then I didn't touch card games for years. And then my friend got me into Flesh and Blood. And this is the first time I'm actually playing Flesh and Blood or a TCG competitively, like actually going to tournaments and stuff like that. So this is my first competitive TCG.
That's actually very interesting to me. I wouldn't have guessed that, and to hear that, it was Duel Masters and then a long gap and then Flesh and Blood. Now, were you doing anything gaming? I mean, I'm sure you've been gaming, but were you doing anything somewhat competitively in the gaming world in between that era?
Not really. I did like some super low level, like for Riot gift cards, League of Legends tournaments with friends, like twice, basically.
Okay.
But I was never going anywhere with it. I was never like grinding ranked or anything like that. But I played computer games from the start of college when I got when I got access to a computer that wasn't my parents'. I would play games online. I've played games online since then, and I played console games before that. So, like, gaming has always kind of been my thing. It's just like I enjoy it. I enjoy the puzzles and the problem solving of all of it. So, I just ended up back in the TCG space because literally one night a friend was like, the friend who got me into the game was like, "Hey, do you want to play League?" I'm like, "No, I really don't want to play League right now."
Good choice.
She was like, "Can I get you into Flesh and Blood finally?" I'm like, "I'll take a look." And I was up till 5 a.m. that night just going through cards and looking at them.
Man.
And I've been hooked. So I've been doing like this kind of genre of game, like strategic problem solving games, like forever. So.
And also, there's that kind of crossover, not to say Flesh and Blood's like League that much at all, but there are heroes and champions or whatever.
There's a decent number of concepts that carry over pretty well from like different games, and League is a weird one where there's like specializing in a character does benefit you significantly and can jump you a lot of ranks very quickly. So it's not zero crossover, but
Hey,
It's not a ton necessarily. It's not a team game.
it's
So
a concept at least, so
yeah.
that makes sense to me. Now,
Yeah.
I guess, well, just a nice little follow up question. That what would be the jungler in Flesh and Blood?
Oh, that's weird.
I
Well,
mean,
because
it's very
they're
unique
playing
to that
it's
game.
interesting because they're playing a fundamentally different game
Hmm.
than all the lanes
Yeah.
are playing. And but at the same time they have to do like everything.
Yeah.
So that's ooh. Okay. I mean, like I could put some Flesh and Blood heroes that would probably be junglers.
Riptide, maybe.
Like Riptide, maybe. Riptide would probably end up as a weird, like off meta support, I feel like.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
And like there would probably be some weird jungle picks, but like obviously Rhinar KO would probably end up as
Mm.
jungle picks. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that just makes sense. Now,
Yeah.
it is kind of maybe I mean, I haven't played in forever, but maybe
Yeah.
because like you're playing like you're trying to kill like the whatever enemies in the jungle, I guess sometimes,
Yeah.
and to get these buffs, against Illusionist,
Yeah.
you become the jungler because you got to
Yeah,
deal
you're
with
playing
auras.
the mini game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And soon probably Necromancer as well, but we won't be talking
Yep.
too much about that until we know more about it. But
Sure.
that is very exciting. But what was it about Flesh and Blood though that was like kind of this TCG that you came to and you were like, okay, you know what? I do want to be competitive at this, where that was never something that you did with card games ever before. It's a whole different world.
Yes. I think it was Icelander.
Ooh.
Because the first deck I was shown was Oldhim, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. This is like a control-y thing. But then I got shown Icelander, and I'm like, you can play your cards as though they were instants.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, that means you do stuff on both turns. And I'm like, oh, that's way better. That's sick. And it really was that because like I played a game of Icelander the next day, and then I played 5 for 2 months to learn the basic rules of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was an Icelander main. Like
Wow.
that was just it. I wanted to play Icelander the entire time I was playing Fi. I was like, I can't wait to play Icelander. I can't wait to get to that point where I feel like I can play Icelander.
Oh man, are we gonna get another Icelander soon? I think they're probably waiting. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious how they do that.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting.
We do need a replacement Elemental Ranger and a replacement Ice Wizard. We do have another or two Elemental Wizards. They're scared of the ice.
Yes.
Understandably. But
Yes.
so you're playing. We'll talk about your favorite cards in a bit, but you get into Icelander, and the first time I really met you was through the Pit Against with our mutual friend William.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I really got to like hang out with you and chat with you, and how did William convince you to do that? Rope you into doing a call-in show where any random maniac, myself included, can hop on and say stupid stuff like we should be playing yellow Fate Foreseen in decks. So it's a great show.
It is. It's a fun time. It's really interesting. We get some really out of the box takes that I don't expect. But that came about because there was a handful of times that like we would be on Discord watching whatever event is overseas, whatever calling or other event. And then probably there was I bet there's one time that really stuck in his mind, which was it was a PQ season, and I think it was like the Bright Lights draft PQ season, so the one that was in the lead up to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And we had back-to-back PQs in Roanoke. So people were going over to someone else's house Friday night, doing a bunch of testing, watching Calling Melbourne.
Okay.
And there's 8 of us in this house, and there's 2 setups on that are like a half flight of stairs separated, and we're just yelling back and forth as we yell at the stream, and I'm pretty sure there was some stuff said where he was just like, I need to record you doing this. And I'm like, sure. All right.
That makes sense. Even better, do it live and recorded, which is so much fun. Now,
no, there's no scripting, no editing. You can't. You got.
Now, did OG Dash win that calling, if I remember correctly, or was that Dio's coming out party?
That was Dio going undefeated until the finals and losing to Azuri.
Oh, yes,
from Ben Dodd.
I do remember that.
But I remember watching those games and watching the Lexis, because I think I was playing Lexi at the time in CC or something, or I had been playing Lexi. Mm-hmm. And then there was also Icelanders that I was definitely yelling at. So
yeah. I mean, that was that? That was right before she left, right? Icelander? Yes. She left soon after.
Yeah, it was probably about a month before she left or so.
Yeah.
Months, maybe.
I remember because I went to a Pittsburgh event. I think that was the first post-Icelander event, and I actually did okay with Riptide for once because I didn't have to. Yeah, it was one of the Realm events.
Yeah, that was probably the Realm 20K in Columbus.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Because that was the first event I didn't get to play Icelander.
Oh, yeah, that sticks in your mind for a different reason.
Yeah, it does.
But hey, we'll get back to her. But
yeah.
So you do some content with William, who's been on the show, who asked a question almost religiously on this show, and has asked a question, of course, today. We'll get to that from the listener questions. But you're doing also some content on your own. You created a YouTube channel and you're making some content. How's that going? Tell us about it.
It's going significantly better than I expected it to. After Memphis, I was getting a lot of questions about the deck. I had a lot of friends picking up the deck, at least in within the range that I play PQs. I had a lot of people that I know picking up the deck and trying it, and they would come to me with questions like, I put the auras in because that's what the sideboard said, and then I didn't know what to do with them. And I'm like, oh, I've been taking that for granted because I've been playing the deck forever.
Yeah.
These aren't people who were in that first cycle of Prism where there was that content for it immediately available. And I'm like, okay, I need to do a little bit more for this. And I started doing essentially what Mara does, which is I started writing just a paper on it, what she calls primers. And I'm just going through it, and I'm trying to sketch out what the section on the aura plane would look like. And I'm like, this isn't going to work in paper nearly as well as it would in a presentation or a video. So I'm like, all right, and especially after the stream that I did with Taylor Crawford, I was getting more questions, and I had some people say some stuff after that really got me into it. But I realized that I needed to do this as videos to make it, because it was just a better medium for the information I was trying to convey. And especially after that stream with Taylor, I saw one person in particular in Purple Chat said that it was one of the best resources on Prism they'd had, and that they learned this, and this. And I'm like, how did you pull that out of that disorganized mess? So what if I organized it and did that? So I took some of my skills on information on high level presentations and presenting high level information that I learned in grad school, and I ported it over to this, and it's been going pretty well. It's been doing better than I expected it to, for sure.
Well, I gotta say, it's a better use of that grad school knowledge here in the flesh and blood world. That's what schooling's for. I've always said.
I'm using more of it for this than I do for my job.
I know, isn't that crazy? Sometimes I don't think I would have been able to market my own podcast without, I guess, some of my schooling. I don't know, but oh man, that's awesome. I think kind of giving context to things like sideboards and stuff like that like you said, you can take it for granted, right? You know it. Like it's just
Yeah.
in your mind. You're just like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
here it is.
I've been doing it for a year. Like
Yeah.
it's just that, and that entails 20 turn game plans, but
Mm-hmm. But
I have to
yeah,
convey that. So
it's so interesting because like even right now, I play locally. I've been playing this like Control Riptide, right?
mhm.
And I'm the only one around here playing Riptide, and certainly one of the few playing Control Riptide in this area. And
Yeah.
I do feel bad sometimes. I'll run into like an Aurora who has a tough time into it, which is a
Yep.
good matchup for me, but also not unwinnable, certainly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I've been talking, especially you know shout out Greg, who's local, that's been just gotten to the game recently and fell in love with Aurora. Just trying to explain, it's like, listen, here's why this is good. Here's why, like like you got the concepts down of like, yeah, Aurora goes fast and is going to be aggressive, but it can also do this other stuff that's going
Mhm.
to push over the top, and why it's such a good deck, and
Mhm.
just like giving that information to people is so cool. And I'm glad you're
Yep.
doing it for Prism. Although I just lost to a Prism today, and I was so frustrated. I was like, well, somebody's teaching them. Somebody's teaching them. I guess I'll have to have them on the podcast or something.
Sorry.
But that's awesome to hear. We'll plug that at the end. But
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
Smurph Fab
Yep.
on YouTube. So
Yep.
it's great. Please check it out, everyone. Now I had a note here. Drinking with Tommy. We spent a evening of drafting
Yep.
Rosetta in Tampa.
Yep.
And I lent you
Yep.
some White
I
Claws or
do
something like that.
I do still owe you a drink from that. Yep.
Yeah,
You
listen.
walked in and you had two, and you offered one to like Mo or somebody. He's like, "Nah, I'm good." And I was like, "I'll take it." And you're like,
I was
"Here you go." And I'm like, "Sick."
I was like, you know what? I'll say it right now. I like Kevin more than Mo Bogsley. Mo, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sure he won't listen, but if he does, I will get my phone blown up. We love you, Mo. But that was a fun night. Just
Yeah.
kind of because some of you were day 2, I think, right? And wanted to get some practice drafting. It was the world premiere of Rosetta.
Yes.
And then some of us, me specifically, was not day 2, and I was like, I'll draft. I love drafting. And you as well. And
I was not day 2.
yeah, and we're like, well, you know what? Like,
Yeah, I was like, I'll
we
go
like
draft.
playing.
I want to know how to draft this set.
Yeah, and that was a great night. And just like some of
Yeah.
the for the people out there ever thinking about going to an event maybe a little bit further away, you're gonna find so many cool people to like
Yep.
play the game with and kind of connect with. We had people at the table that were taking it seriously, but we were all having a ton of laughs, and I thought that
Yeah.
was like the real kind of beauty of
Yeah.
Flesh and Blood in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And I was glad to kind of share it with you and others, except for Mo Bogsley. But I'm sorry, Mo. Now, Battle Hardened Memphis, you just took it down, what, a month ago at this point?
2 months.
Tell us about it. You took it down with Prism.
Yeah. I hit probably about the best bracket I could have picked. And it's funny, I've gone back and I've watched the 2 games that I had on stream, and I don't think I've ever played that well, like since or before. Like, it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, why did I choose to do that? Like, I don't think it's wrong. And then like the next turn cycle, I'm like, oh, I was just already there.
Yeah.
Like, it was just kind of my day. I know I took some gambles in some of my games and they paid off. But like, I also was looking around the room because I played Viscerai at the Calling on Friday. I didn't make day 2. I didn't want to play Limited. I'm not the biggest fan of Sealed. And I just played Prism for side events. And I talked to Barrett and Adam, 2 other Prism players, Vishra and Adam Franzi, as they go by, about like what Prism was looking like and the stuff that some of the changes they were making. And I made some changes just to play the side events. And I didn't love them. But as I was looking around the side events and the rest of Constructed, I was like, there's not a lot of armor.
Yeah.
or poppers. That's pretty good for Prism. Um, and then I kind of fixed the list up Sunday morning and just said, I'm just going to go play Prism. I'm not going to play Viscerai. I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to go have fun. And I hit good matchup after good matchup, and I was playing well, and everything kind of broke my way. So ended up getting my first Battle Hardened top 8, and then hit 3 good matchups in top 8 and got there. So.
Now, what were the matchups that you faced in the top 8? First of all, congratulations if I didn't say that, but and also I do want to touch on, you mentioned that, you had some good luck there, and I think that's an important thing for people to realize is like,
oh yeah,
you gotta be lucky. I mean,
yes.
like, it is a game of skill according to Germany now. But you still gotta be lucky with Gem.
Yes, to win a tournament, you have to have some amount of luck. But there's a saying that's bounced around for a while that luck is when preparation meets opportunity, or something like that. Like, I had to be a good enough player to take advantage of the bracket that I was given. Because like my top 8 matchups were Verdance, Marionette, and Syndra, and those are all pretty favored matchups for Prism. Particularly in those iterations of each of the decks, because the Marionette, Brian only had 3 poppers and Jacob had none, which is all kind of shifting a little bit at the moment.
Yeah.
But even like my Swiss rounds were Zen, Azuri, Nu, Zen, Marionette, Aurora. All of which are good matchups for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
like, I'm going to go play those games as well as I can, and I'm going to take it. But
as you should.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. It's so cool to like kind of hear, because like, sometimes I even have to remind myself with Prism that this is not the Prism of old. This is not the same Prism.
No, it is so far separated.
Yeah, it's kind of a rogue deck in a way, and
a little bit.
And like it's still popular, but it's not what it was, and certainly not might not be the best Illusionist. We'll talk about that in a bit, but it is a deck that needs those lucky breaks, but it's so cool when that happens, and like really it can happen for any rogue deck. I shouldn't say any, but most rogue decks.
Depending on your definition of rogue deck.
yeah. Like if a Riptide just runs into like assassins all day, I think that they're pretty happy. But that doesn't happen all the time. I can tell you that when you're hoping for it, you'll run into Verdance, Kano, and you'll never be Prism. I don't mind it as much. It's they can get you, but I do pack a lot of poppers, so
a control Riptide probably.
Yeah. But
give a little bit more legs in the matchup.
Absolutely. But hey, congratulations! It's awesome. I'm really happy to see it happen to a good person, and I'm happy that it's kind of jump started this content journey too, which is very cool. Always good to have more of it, especially on the specialist side of things. So we got to talk about your fresh faves though. These are your favorite cards in the game. Since it's your first time on the show, hopefully first of many times on the show, we're going to hit you with overall fresh faves in the game. First, Kevin, what is your favorite, or who is your favorite hero, I should say?
Icelander Stormbind.
I thought that was going to come. Especially after, you speak in her praises. It's a good one. I hope we get the replacement in a different kind of way than the last one.
It's not going to have the same feel, I'm pretty sure, but I will be interested in seeing what they give us. So
yeah, much like new Prism is very different from old Prism, as we said. Now, 100%. What's your favorite weapon?
It's Waning Moon. It's like it is Icelander's play style, just in a nutshell. Like, it embodies that back and forth that she wants, where it's like you are doing stuff on both turns, and it benefits you to do stuff on both turns and to interact with your opponent on that slightly separate axis, but not completely, where it's like you're not like on board state stuff where you're interacting with your opponent, but you're interacting with them still on that like kind of combat chain at the same time. So like it just pairs so perfectly with her. I don't know why. I mean, I guess I know why now. It wasn't her signature weapon because they had to get rid of Kraken's Aether Vein.
Yeah.
For Rosetta. But no, like it. Waning Moon is just. I loved the back and forth that hero and weapon created together. So, you can't have one without the other, I think.
Yeah, and I do think it was a smart move actually to not make it the weapon, because also like Waning Moon, I would even say could end up being like a mystic wizard at some point, like based on what we saw in MST. Now I don't want to get people too excited. I think we're pretty good on mystic heroes for the time being. But listen,
I could see that with a Blue Matters deck like Mystic and something where you can pitch a chi and play stuff as though it were an instant. That would be that'd be pretty cool.
That would be kind of neat. I mean, that would be a cool design space to kind of like your chi resource allows you to play stuff at instant rather than just like that might be too powerful, to be honest. But
maybe
they don't.
It's a full card to do it because like we sort of have Meridian Pathway doing that.
Sure.
But it's not used for that often. But giving it a wizard design space might be different.
Yeah.
So
that's another bag of hammers for sure. But no, really, really cool card. Now, what's your favorite equipment?
I think this is Halo of Illumination.
Okay, now we're into the Prism stuff.
Yeah, I think this is Halo of Illumination because the versatility. It's so funny when I saw New Prism, like when we finally got the text for New Prism, we were playing Monarch draft not long after that because that was the draft we had for Nats that season because it was Dusk Till Dawn season. We didn't have a draft set and they didn't want us playing Outsiders again.
Yeah.
So they broke out Monarch First Ed, and I was kind of looking at Halo as like Prism was spoiled, and I'm like, that could be kind of sick if we can just fetch a Figment whenever we want at instant speed. Turns out it is.
Yeah.
And you can do just some of the most insane stuff with that card. And I've compared it to Stormstriders in Icelander in terms of like your creativity is like you can be so creative with that card and it's so powerful and it's so impactful. And the way you use that equipment defines like how good you are with the deck. So like Halo has found a spot above Stormstriders for me.
It's like I always forget about it, and like I'm almost like every time I play a Prism, for whatever reason, I'm still surprised to see it. Which is that's a me problem. I need to work on it. We're going to therapy, but like I see that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's really good. I keep forgetting that.
Because it was just Draft Chaff before. It was Spell Void 2 before, and that was it. That was all it was used for. OG Prism would play it in Blitz because it was Spell Void 2 when Icelander and Kano were running around, and that was it. And now it's just there's no other headpiece. You don't play any other headpiece, and it's a common.
Is it light only?
It is light.
Yeah, I do think I do remember playing it in like the original iteration of like Combo Bolton.
Okay.
Just to get like when I felt like there was no better option, and I think you just need to get some more stuff in Soul. But nobody thought about even that deck for quite some time too. So, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bolton. Prism's getting all the good stuff. Let's talk about your favorite card that you throw into your deck.
This one's difficult. I knew this question was coming because I've listened to the pod, and I thought about this a lot because it's difficult for me to like separate a single card from the deck because everything is so. The decks I play are just absolutely built on synergies of like Icelander is built around like the Ice Energy infusion and then like a splash of the like 0 for 4 and 2 for 8 value or the 1 card 4 and the 2 card 8 value. And then Prism is just like pure synergies. That's it. Like all of it's about like Herald synergy and then like Angel synergy or like the aura support plan for it. So like it's hard for me to separate out a single card. If I had to choose, it'd probably be Aether Ice Vein.
Okay.
Just because it's like it goes in Rainbow. The card is just so good, and it's not even like crazy above rate. Its rate is slightly under until you get the effect, but then it just flows perfectly with Icelander's ability of the fuse card is going into your arsenal to play. Like it just was everything that Icelander wanted in a card, and we'll see what it looks like in New Icelander.
Yeah,
but
it's still a good card. I mean, like that's like maybe
it may not be as good when you can't arsenal the ice blue to play.
That's true. That is true.
It was such a smooth play pattern. I think I would pick that for now, but there's probably some Prism cards that you could pull my leg on. So
Aether Ice Vein's a fair answer there. Now, what class and talent would you be in the world of Wraith?
It would probably be Wizard at this point. I have too much of that in me. I don't think Illusionist is like exactly where I'm at. Not like the Enigma OG Prism Illusionist. Like New Prism is like in a weird spot with that, but it'd probably be some version of Wizard. And I don't think it would be Ice. It would probably be something in Mystic or Light if I had to choose. Because it's not Light. I don't think it's any of the elementals. It's not Draconic. It's not Shadow. It would probably be like Light Wizard or Mystic Wizard.
Well, might as well give you the Mystic Wizard because we're already talking about Waning Moon. I mean, it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Now, what is your greatest set of all time so far?
I think it's interesting because it's not for constructed, but I think it's Mistveil.
Okay.
Because Mistveil Limited is what made me really start to enjoy Limited for this game.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I had never drafted a card game before playing Flesh and Blood. I went into PT Baltimore with probably about 12 drafts in my lifetime. So it took some getting used to playing Limited, where like everything is super powered down. I'm building everything from scratch. I don't have the deck building principles. And I played some sealed at like pre-releases and stuff, and I just didn't enjoy it until I played Mistveil sealed. And everything just kind of clicked because it was the first time they did 30 card minimum maximum, 30 card exact. And it was the first time they gave you 8 packs.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like, and then within, like you actually got to make 1 deck building choices and 2 sideboard choices in games of Limited. And that's what hooked me into actually enjoying Limited and looking at it and like studying it for like putting real, more serious prep time into the formats for any events that I was playing. And then like Rosetta Draft is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's Mistveil. Because also self-contained Mistveil constructed is fairly reasonable. It's not like perfect.
Yeah.
But considering where Zen is now, when he's just on the Mistveil cards, it's a pretty good set, I think, and it's what really like sold me on Limited and how they like that part of the game. So,
yeah, I will say, yeah, it was a good draft set. The one complaint people have is the bombs, but I do think that was a good kind of paradigm shift for the game, for the greater good of the game. For sure. So that like when new people get into the game, they open something that's a high rarity and it's like, oh, I'm going to put this in my deck. It should do something good and cool.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, if you were to ask me after just drafting MST, like you would say, Tommy, what deck do you want to play going forward? I would have probably said Zen because the way Zen plays in Limited was so like cool. Yeah, the toolboxiness to it.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
once it gets homogenized in CC, you're just like,
Yeah.
well, I'm doing the same thing every time I
Yeah,
transcend.
for sure.
So
No, it was. I remember we were doing a draft boot camp for Nats, like the week before Nats, and I had like just played a Zen draft, and I was 2-0, and I was playing the other Zen for a 3-0. But I had a Chase the Tail in my deck, and I played Chase the Tail 4 times in 2 games. Like
yeah.
I won those games. But at the same time, like we went to get food after that one, and we were sitting down. We were talking about like how someone said how like Zen's cards are interchangeable, and I was like, I think they look like it, but they're not actually.
Yeah.
Each of them is like just subtly different in limited to where it's like you have to know which of the three you want to take in a pack to fit what you already have.
Yes.
And like, because you're building that toolbox, but you have to understand how to build the toolbox and how each one is just that little bit different. It's like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
If they removed like Chase the Tail and Mirror Guy from limited, the set would probably be like really good.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I don't think or no, it was last week. Maybe Roger was saying it, but if the 30 card cap was in heavy hitters, it would have felt probably like pretty good, like close to, because I think we had the 30 card cap happen in MST, and like
I think so.
Really, it just felt so good, and like those decisions and building that toolbox was just so neat. So
yeah.
Good answer. Now let's get down to brass tacks, talking about Illusionist. Prism and Illusionist, I do want to, mention, first of all, I don't know if any of you out there watched the coverage of the Brazilian calling the past week in Sao Paulo. Holy smokes. I mean, it was awesome. I'm so happy that the South American region is getting this a calling, first of all, and like getting featured, right? Because if there's one thing about that region of the world, it's passion, right? And that's like just like so evident from that stream, which was great. We did come off the tail end of a finals that was pretty crazy. It was former guest Florin Christian Logan on Enigma, who fell to Cardew on Aurora. Now, I mean, that could have gone either way. I know that Florin had to get through 2 Auroras to get to the finals on Enigma, if I remember, at least one.
In
the semis. Enigma, which I guess probably isn't super favored into Aurora, but like can do
she has play.
Yeah, she has play, and like that was pretty evident from Florin's play. I gotta ask, as a Prism main or a current Prism main, if Icelander comes back, we know where you're going. I think
we'll see. Yeah, no promises.
Is Enigma the best illusionist that we have right now? We have 2, right? Unless I'm missing one. No,
2. Yeah. I think Enigma is the most consistent. She's going to have the most stable matchup spread across the board. Her deck has gotten pretty stable, especially looking at like Vespa's list and Florin's list. It feels like they've smoothed out a lot of the stuff, but there's still like some stuff that I don't like about Enigma and the playstyle, and then some of the cards that end up in the list where I'm just kind of not a fan. But she is definitely the most stable. She probably has better odds of doing well at an event than Prism does because of that.
Yeah.
But I think Prism, with Prism, you're taking some trade-offs. Like you take some good matchups for some bad matchups. Or some difficult matchups at least. But I think Enigma is probably slightly better overall than Prism is at the moment.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I'll be honest with you, and I was way off. I felt like when Enigma was spoiled, I said to myself, maybe I was in denial, which is totally possible. I was like, this looks like a fixed Illusionist. Like, it's not going to be, too good. Like, it's going to be fun. People are going to have fun with it. And this, that, and the other thing. And then here we are, looking at Living Legend, the points. Enigma's at 809 points.
Yes.
And Zen's at 961, and New is at 744. That's a lot of points in almost a year now. And
less than, yeah.
Yeah, a lot less than a year actually at this point.
It's about 9 months, I think.
Yeah, when I
10
bet,
months.
I mean, we could see Enigma and Zen go before the year. New has a little bit more of a climb, but it all depends on what happens in London, to be honest, because that could shift things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Prism's sitting at 502, which I think is super healthy, actually. Right?
Yeah.
That's a 2-year-old deck at this
point. It is. So
I guess
she was released a year before Mistveil.
Yes.
I would really only start measuring from heavy hitters about 14 months ago.
Okay, that's fair.
Because those are fundamentally different decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'm not really looking at it as 2 years, but like 500 points in 14 months for a deck that also got a ban.
Yeah,
I think is pretty healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a powerful deck. It is doing powerful things. We saw it in the last RTN season. It was still doing pretty well. It was consistently in the 4th through 6th point each week. I
think
Prism's in a decent spot. Yeah,
certainly healthy, and it's kind of looking right like it will be the only Illusionist left for a bit, and that kind of brings up the question: do we have like a problem with Illusionists? And like I like to ask people who play Illusionists, because if I ask, an Azalea player, they're gonna say yes every single time.
Ask a Bravo player.
yeah. Like, do we have a problem with Illusionists? Absolutely. But do we actually? So OG Prism clearly was a really dominant deck. It was a different time as well, right?
Yes.
A lot of dominant decks. And, was probably on the same trajectory as most of them, maybe a little bit slower. A
little bit slower
than like Chain and obviously Starvo, which was crazy. But
yeah.
And then Dromai was really good, I would say. A really good deck.
Pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. Won a Pro Tour, right?
Yep.
And is that all it won? In terms of like,
she would always be doing pretty well. She won a couple callings.
Yeah.
She would always be doing well or like reasonable in whatever season was happening. After the Belittle ban for Phi, she saw a decent spike there. Yeah. And then after Tome of Imperial Flame, she went pretty quickly.
Yes, that was a big help. And, we see these big helps happen to these decks to help them, get on their way, because people get tired of the Illusionist matchup. And that is one thing that is true. But the question, to bring it back to you, with Enigma only being 200 points away, is Illusionist kind of like suffering from a core design issue?
I don't know if it's a core design issue, but it is a fundamental factor of when you have a game like Flesh and Blood, where the majority of the cast is playing on attack actions that are one-time things that don't stay on the battlefield, and then you have a deck that has a permanent on the board that can get recurring value turn after turn. You're playing fundamentally different games.
Yes.
Like I don't necessarily want to say it breaks the core tenets of Flesh and Blood, but I'm pretty sure they would say that about OG Prism. Well, OG Luminaris was the real culprit. Like you could just gain so much value turn after turn. It didn't matter how bad your math was on some turns, because you were just playing the game differently. And it's just the danger that they have with permanents that get recurring value, is what I keep coming back to, because this is a question that we get on Pit Against every 3 months. is how do we do this? Because in the first time we really had this discussion, I think it was with Nathan Crawford, and he was like, permanents have no place in Flesh and Blood, is what he was saying, was his statement. And we were like, well, is a rune chant a permanent? Is Channel Mount Heroic a permanent?
Yeah, I mean, they are.
Is equipment a permanent? Are weapons permanents? And it really came back to, it's like, well, the rune chants are one-time things for one damage, and then Channel Mount Heroic, you have to channel for it, you have to pay costs, everyone gets to start with equipment, everyone gets to start with weapons. But then you have Shimmers of Silver, and it gets to attack and become a 2, and attack and become a 3, and attack and become a 4. And that's when it doesn't go away, that's when it starts becoming a problem. Like Burn Them All goes away.
Yeah.
On its own. And Burn Them All was never really a problem. Nobody complained about it. Even when it would be a 0 for 7 with Go Again, because it got 7 damage. But it was 1 damage over, it had to last 7 turns, you had to have all the red cards in graveyard. But then, if you just couldn't kill a dragon for whatever reason, that was the problem.
Yeah.
It was the Spectral Auras that you couldn't afford to clear, or you couldn't keep up with as Guardian, that were the problem. And then for Enigma, it's like, if you ever just get locked out, or they full block a turn and Mirror Guy gets to stick a turn, yeah, it's a permanent with insane recurring value.
Yeah.
That, like, that's where I don't know what their next Illusionist looks like, but they've gotten closer each time, I think. Especially with how they've kind of balanced Enigma in the couple ban lists that we've had since her release. Because obviously, like, CYB was just crazy for her in its full 9, and it's not nearly as good in the 6. And now we're seeing a version of Enigma that's like almost similar to OG Prism in ways, when she would play aggro matchups, because she would have Phantasmaclasm sometimes. She would have Miraging Metamorphs. She had lots of 1 for 7s, 1 for 6s, and then 2 for 6s that she was playing. She wasn't on Spectral Auras necessarily as much into Phi.
Yeah.
But we've seen Enigma shift that way as the balance kind of gets tuned on her. Because she can't keep the permanents around to defend them, so she can't get the recurring value.
Mm-hmm.
And we see stuff like Waxing Spectre and Waning Vengeance, the ones that were the commons for Mistveil draft, have also started to drop in numbers because you can't keep them, because they're not always getting 3 on their ward. Like, I think they're figuring it out, because the problem is when you have decks that don't get that recurring permanent value and decks that do, your math is going to end up broken somewhere.
Yeah,
it's gonna.
It's hard to balance, and like, to be honest, I'm not worried about Necromancer, right? But we're having allies that don't block from hand that we know of, right?
I want to know what's up with that card design, because that's weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It could just be, that's the fix
but also, like,
there.
They did something really interesting on the allies, which is they're going to have you make choices.
Mm-hmm.
Is it offensive or is it defensive this turn? And you can't get both. Because that was how, like, Dromai really got ahead, is like, if Kyloria swings for 4 and it's threatening the on-hit draw, and then you have to send 2 damage at it.
That is tough.
Like, you got both sides of the turn cycle with it, but you can't do that with these Necromancer allies, it looks like. You have to pick.
Yeah.
And people are looking at Chum and he's the instant speed ability where he becomes Arclight Sentinel. I'm like, that's so far from Arclight Sentinel. It's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, your Go Again still works,
Your Go Again still all works.
Yeah.
It just says this blocks for 6, but I also have to discard a card for it. So this card plus whatever thing, this looks so much better already than any of the other, like, permanent based stuff we've seen. Anything else with allies, like, it looks better than New Prism in terms of balance. Like,
yeah, that's for sure. So, I mean, and from the couple cards we saw, and we still don't know what the symbol is, although we can kind of infer what it is.
Yeah,
but I'm hoping it's something a little bit cooler than just tap. But hey, listen, that's a discussion
We'll
for
see.
pit against. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think we're getting closer and closer. Enigma, we'll see. You know, we probably don't even have to. MST in general was kind of. It was
Yeah.
just very powerful. So, and like I do think Prism, like new Prism, is pretty good for the game. I think because it kind of is that like riskier version of the
Yes.
Illusionist that we've come to
Yep.
know and hate. No, not hate, love. But I do want to ask
sure.
you
Yeah.
3 things looking at the future of new Prism, which you're spending a lot of time with right now. I want to ask you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Looking ahead, looking into your crystal ball, into your crystal spectral shield, I want you to tell me, looking ahead, what's the good happening for Prism going forward based on instincts, vibes, what you know?
I think the meta is in a decent place for her right now. I think when Zen and Aurora are gone, the meta's gonna once Enigma's gone, I think like those top 3, like Zen, Enigma, Aurora are gone. I think things actually get a lot harder because all the brutes kind of come back in
Mm-hmm.
and the guardians come back in. And I wouldn't be surprised if you had to play like Iris Prism. So like the
Interesting.
good is like right now. The bad is potentially in like 3 months where things could get a little hairy. Um, because I'm just curious, I guess, especially if like Mechanologist is our aggro deck,
Yeah.
that can also get really bad for Prism. Um,
Yeah, we just saw that
because
crazy popper that isn't good, but could be good. We don't really know.
I'm not sure. I mean, they just can have Max V as a popper.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Like
true.
they just get that. And they can cast that too. Like either side of Max V is awful for New Prism to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not sure what happens there. It's going to depend a little bit on the next set, but there might be a little lull in Prism's power for a bit after those kind of top 3 are gone. Um, I, I'm not really sure where to put ugly for that. Then
Well, I mean, I guess the
yeah,
ugly, real ugly, is probably just a brute guardian meta,
yeah.
right?
Guardian not as bad, but
Yeah,
Brute yes.
yeah,
Guardian we can handle still. I think.
yeah. I think you definitely have. I mean, like the aura plan is
Yeah, they're slow enough that we can find solutions to those games. But also, if Prism is just the only illusionist and they get to put all of their tech for illusionist into Prism,
mm-hmm.
that gets bad for us pretty
That's the
quickly.
real ugly. If
That's
Prism,
probably the real ugly
yeah.
is actually once Enigma's gone and all the tech gets to be for Prism and they're like 3 time snaps in every Guardian deck plus they're bringing Null Rune plus Staunches or something like that. Like, yeah, that could get ugly real quick, and we might see Prism take a little Dash IE hiatus if that kind of
Yeah.
meta rolls around.
Dash IE. You mean Living Legend point 940 second place Dash IE, who didn't get
Yeah,
any points during the so
yeah.
listen, we have hope that maybe she never leaves. Maybe she's just there. But that would be the second of the OG4 to leave. Now that Viscerai's gone. And
Of
soon
the OG8,
or
yeah,
OG8, yeah, sorry. Azalea could probably lap her, to be honest, with a
she
new
might.
Ranger
Mhm.
coming out
We'll
with
we'll
some more
see what
support.
happens.
Yeah. But hey, listen, I
Yeah,
think it's probably a net good future for Prism.
yeah.
Kind of looking forward. But you know what? Maybe they print another busted card in the expansion slot to kind of send Prism further on her
Yeah.
way. So when we hit Monarch chapter 3 or
Monarch
whatever,
3.
yeah. Although it could just be new light heroes, which wouldn't be a
Yeah,
bad thing either. So
yeah. They got
very
to replace
interesting.
Bolton at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Real quick before we get to listener questions, hit me with
Yeah.
the hot take about high seas. something
I
that.
think Marlin is
Ooh.
going to be the worst matchup for Prism out of all of them.
Whoa! Oh, you think just like the kind of.
She's on like 2 for 6 arrows, and then the cannons could get weird, whatever those are.
Yeah.
And suddenly I have to play a board state game against a ranger, and because it's interesting. I look at Necromancer, and there are allies that my heralds can hit,
Yep.
and I'm very happy with that. And then there's permanents potentially that ranger can get that I can't hit, and I don't like that. And then they have 2 for 6 arrows, potentially a lot of them.
Yes.
And those are also not good for us. So she might be the worst matchup for Prism out of the 3. But I think Necro is going to be kind of easy.
Yeah. I was thinking about the easy on hits too, because like, I play Murky Water and just like, let me just get traps back for free.
Let me just grab my traps. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I do that to Prism, like with the Angels. I'm like, free traps. But it should be cool. I'm excited. We do have listener questions though. First comes from Sigma. These come from the Buds Discord. Anybody's free to join. Sigma asks, what are your best strategies to counter brutes? And from the 3 brutes, which one is the worst to face and the easiest to win against?
They all suck. They're all bad. Well, they're all bad to play against. They're all bad matchups. I think the best is like Gambler's Gloves. Like honestly, like that's the best tech. I managed to beat a Levia at Armory on like Saturday as Prism just going Aura Plan, and he never broke his Gambler's Gloves. He rolled like 1 or 2 action points each time, and just like, and I got my full pivot on like turn 3, where it was like ALS Shariah Genesis, full pivot with another Aura out. Like I think I had a Merciful out or something still, and just like I didn't take a point of damage for the rest of the game, because I was just insanely lucky. Like he didn't break his gamblers when he should have probably, but I think all 3 brutes are really bad matchups right now for slightly different reasons. But I don't know. I don't have a good plan into them. I haven't since we lost home.
Yeah. I mean, I just know Sigma, who's a huge brute player, is just giggling, listen to that, all giddy. And hey, listen, I don't blame him. Next question comes from William. Do you know William? From the Table Pit.
Maybe.
What is the number one mistake you see on stream prison players make?
I think it was probably, it's less on stream prisms and more just like prisms as I'm walking around the room. I make the mistake a lot of like how they use Angelic Wrath, the pump to go over top of, to put heralds over the top. Is using that, and it's just kind of like they'll use it when the herald's already hitting, just because they can push damage with it. I think also the other one is like which card you put into Soul for Genesis.
Gotcha.
is a big. As soon as they put that card into Soul, you can tell what they want to do with the hand, and I'll pretty often disagree with what they want to do with the hand when they get to Genesis a card. So that's also pretty telling in where Prism's at and what they're thinking about. And probably, I would say, a mistake a decent amount of the time. So
very interesting. Prism players, beware. William also had a follow-up. When will be your next big win? Do I have to wait until the PT?
You would probably have to wait until at least the PT, considering there's no other big events for me to play until then. I'm not playing Milwaukee this weekend for the Team Battle Hardened as much as I would love to. I want more team events. Yes. Please. Cool. Oh my gosh. Team Seal, one of the most fun things that I do at any events. Like, they're fantastic, and I just want to go play Team Constructed.
Amen to that. I did the Team Blitz from years ago. That was so much fun.
Even back in like Vegas or something, was it?
Yeah. It didn't do well. But Darth, aka Greg, asks, rumor has it you have a pricey Prism deck. What's the most expensive cards in the deck? We're gonna get a little show and tell for the YouTube watchers.
Where's so it is max rarity except for one card because I only have 2 copies of this.
Is that the cold foil Arclight?
It is the cold foil Arclight Sentinels.
Ooh.
And I only have 2 of them. I do not have all 3. I am picking up the 3rd in London.
Oh, all right. There you go.
So I think that is max rarity Prism.
That is probably pretty expensive. How much is the Arclight?
$750 a pop is what I'm getting them for. It is not uncommon to see them for 1,000, and most people won't sell them for less than 1,000. So
holy smokes! Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof. Greg also asks, "What's your favorite generic card bonus points if it blocks for 2?"
Favorite generic.
I mean, I'm thinking of a couple that you definitely played before in a different deck.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. God, it might be Snatch.
Snatch?
It might be Snatch. Because I did play Dromai for a while.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
That was what I played between Icelander and New Prism's, or Prism's new weapon. But Snatch always feels good when you play it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels good. Like, no matter, like, even if they sink below it, you're like, all right, that's fine.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Got a card.
We went even. The worst thing that can happen is we go even. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sucks when
and
you
also
block,
the new Snatch, the new Snatch promos are.
Is that the Mahjong one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those look great. Good answer. You did get the bonus points because it does block for 2. Junior asks, how much do you think the most popular heroes are power crept or just recency bias? Or are they popular because they're cool looking and it doesn't matter their power level?
I think with how competitively oriented Flesh and Blood is, the heroes that you see the most are going to be the most powerful. They just happen to make cool looking heroes. Is the way I think it works out. The game is too competitive to not be about power level. But then, like, the game is also so deep that you can have people playing their pet decks forever and doing very well on them. Even if they're not the best deck. Because, like, we saw Jarl win the Battle Hardened in Brazil.
Yeah.
Right after Aurora wins the Calling. And we see Fang win the Battle Hardened in Eindhoven.
I gotta see that list. I gotta see what's going on with that.
I think it looked like a pretty standard Fang list. I think it had like 8 blues and dynamos, and it was that kind of build.
Okay.
But I mean, it went and it beat Enigma and Florian in top 4 in finals.
And there was a Dawnblade Dory in the top 8 of the Calling.
Yeah. There sure was.
Any given Sunday, folks.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nathaniel from Bold Brew Games asks, what is your favorite talent? And how would you like LSS to expand it? And also, thanks for commentating on the Clash Bashes. Your insight was amazing.
Thank you for that. I need to get back with William on this. Apologies, Nathaniel. I think we actually have a game that we're supposed to do commentary for, and we have not gotten to yet. So my apologies on that. Favorite talent it's probably Ice. Just because it forces people to make choices that are not just Aurora 0 for 4 red line. Because, like, as I saw, like, the Aurora blue count, like, start dropping, I'm like, like, Ice forces interaction and choices when it's done right.
Yeah.
And there is a way to do it where it's healthy for the game. And I don't know that Icelander was that. I think Icelander was probably fine for it at the time. Icelander would be way too good right now, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of policing the aggro decks. All of the aggro decks would look wildly different
Yeah.
in reality. But then like Enigma gets weird. But then like Icelander Enigma might be a really interesting matchup when Waning Moon is just always online for 3.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
that would be really interesting. I don't think that matchup is a given on either side. But no, it's Ice because of what it does to the game and the interaction that it encourages. So, to expand that, I don't know how they really fix it other than something more like Aether Ice Vein and those type effects where it's the pay to or discard and then like Amulet of Ice. Rather than just like instant speed frostbites, which can be so detrimental to a deck. Like knowing what your hand is doing going into a turn, aside from like Blizzard, exactly. But having just 3 Blizzards is way better than having 3 Blizzards plus Channel Lake Frigid plus Hypothermia all at instant speed plus any number of other ice cards. So I think if they want to lean a little bit more on the Aether Ice Vein side of it, that could probably be a way to make it healthier for the game. So
yeah, I would to expand on that. I think that the Jarl limiting the places the frostbites can go to is a good step in that direction for frostbite specifically, because
yes,
that's
a nice middle ground.
Yeah, it's something that you can somewhat have control over for the most part, right? Unless they destroy it.
He has to work for it
mm-hmm.
for you to not have a say.
Exactly.
So I think they did a good job balancing it where it's almost just like it's just a little undertuned, I think, from what we're used to on Ice, but I think that's okay, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Capolo asks, which card in the game gives you the most joy just by looking at it?
Just by looking at it. It's probably the art for Figment of Erudition. Because that piece of art has no business being in a card game.
Yeah.
It is absolutely absurd, the quality of art that we get in this card game.
Yes.
Like, and I think Figment of Erudition is like, because I was an Icelander player at the time when Dusk Till Dawn came out. And I saw that card and I saw the extended art marvel of that and Shariah on the flip side. And I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to play the deck. I'm not planning to play the deck because the weapon was trash. But I want that as a collecting piece. And I didn't want that for anything else. I wasn't foiling out my Icelander deck. I wasn't doing anything like that. But I wanted that as a collector piece because it looked that good. And every time I pull it out of my deck, I'm like, that's sick. And then it draws me 3 cards, and that's even better. But like the art is insane on it. It's so good.
That's a great answer. It does look good. Those figments were, mostly just like excellent, but that one does definitely stand out. And we have one more question. It comes from Remy, who asks, do you need to alter your lifestyle to compete at high levels in TCG tournaments? Do you sleep more or eat better leading up to a competition?
Not really. It's interesting. I'll have people talk about like getting kind of that mental fatigue where it's like at the end of 8 rounds, they're like, I just can't focus, or I need this, or I need that, or if I don't eat, like this happens. And I don't have any of that. And I think part of that is I was in grad school for 6 years getting my PhD. I lived and breathed high level, highly complex problems for 8 hours a day for 6 years. And that was after I did engineering undergrad. So like that kind of like mental, I don't even want to, for me, it doesn't even like feel like effort, but doing that for 8 hours a day is something I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't really like, so I just have my normal sleep patterns and my normal diet. And like, if I don't eat lunch in the middle of a tournament day, it's fine. Like, I'm not worried about it. It's whatever. I'm just there and I'm doing my thing. It was a very easy transition for me, in all honesty, to compete at these events. Because it was just like, I show up at about the time I would get to work. and then I just play the tournament all day, and the 7 or 8 rounds ends about when my workday would end. So it just kind of is my schedule. That being said, if I'm gonna do an entire RTN or PQ season, because like Memphis was the first weekend of February, and then we had 4 weeks of RTNs, and then we had Battle Hardened Charlotte.
Mm.
And I took the 3rd and 4th week of RTN season off, because if I'm doing that for literally weeks straight and no weekends are off and nothing like that, then I have problems and I can get burnt out on the game, and then stuff can get messed up. But like every Sunday I do nothing. I have no obligations. It is completely relax and reset. And then like if I need a weekend off from the game, I'll take it. And that's fine, because I do have a 40-hour week job. And then I'm playing roughly 12 hours in person for Armories every week, because I have 4. And then I'm traveling for these events. So like that is something I will do, but like tournament days, they're just another day for me. So
there you have it. Smurf's just clocking in, folks. Clocking in and just winning Battle Hardens. And the PT soon. Calling it now. I've said that to everybody I've talked to that's playing in London. So I am I'm diversifying my portfolio.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see huge dividends. But Kevin, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having
I'm excited to see where your content journey goes, and also your playing goes. I will, be looking forward to watching the London stream, hopefully to see you on stream, which would be cool. Can you please plug everything that you'd like to plug? And thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm on Blue Sky, and I still have my Twitter account at the same name, Smurphfab, SMURPHFAB, because my last name is Murphy. And then my YouTube channel is under the same name. You can find me on Discord as well, just in the purple Discord. I'm in there at just Smurph, SMURPH. Thursdays, you can find me on the Table Pits YouTube channel, doing Pit Against with William Table and Legs Knuckles. It's a live call-in show. You can join a Discord call with us and give us your hot takes about whatever's going on in Flesh and Blood at the time, and we can go back and forth and have longer than a 240 character discussion. I think that's it.
Cool.
So
please check it all out. The Pit Against is a lot of fun. I'm sure I'll probably hop back on at some point and say something that doesn't make any sense, and then I'll be like, I don't know why I said that, and William will slap me right on the thumbnail, and I'm like, I think yellow items from Everfest are good, or something like that. Which some are okay, but
some were good.
Some were good. You can continue to find me on Blue Sky at freshbudspod.bsky.social or whatever. YouTube, give it the old like, comment, subscribe. Check that out. Check out the Buzz Discord. It's a great place to hang out. It's free for everybody to join. These are all in the show notes below. And finally, Fresh Juice, a podcast that I do with my cousin, which is a indie game podcast that we do every week as well. And food. We did mention your diet in a way, but what's some food you're really enjoying?
Like right now, or like if
you can
just in general, like my favorite.
You can feature one that you love, or one that you've been craving, or whatever. The floor's yours.
Bro, I need them to put an event in New Orleans.
Oh,
so bad.
Yes.
Because I need to go back, and I need to get some good gumbo, some good red beans and rice, some good jambalaya. Yes. Like that's what it's been too long since I've been to New Orleans. It was like 2012 was the last time I went. So it's been 13 years.
Holy moly.
And every time I go, I eat my way through the city, and it's fantastic. And I want to wake up like 6:30 Sunday morning and go to Cafe Du Monde before top 8 of like a PT or something.
Get some beignets.
That'd be dope. Yes, sir.
Oh, that does sound actually excellent. And I'm glad that you put those images in my head of gumbo and jambalaya. Etouffee is one of my favorites.
Little crawfish etouffee.
Oh my god! But I don't think I have time to talk to Charmer after all of that. Sweet Creole food.
A little over the usual runtime.
We'll get him. We'll get him eventually. But thank you all. Stay fresh.